Call us now at 833-ERC-FILE. That's 833-ERC-FILE.
Welcome to Fight for Life, a pro-life radio show discussing the ministry of First Choice Pregnancy Services here in Las Vegas. I'm Deborah, board member and executive director of First Choice Pregnancy Services.
And I'm Jessica, logistics specialist at First Choice Pregnancy Services.
We are ambassadors for the unborn. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, friends. Thanks for joining us today. This is Jess and Deb. I have paper here, and I'm used to saying Deb and Jess, and it has Jess and Eve. This is Deb and Jess.
So what if I made a mistake?
Ambassadors on behalf of the babies, here to share real life insights and stories in the fight for the unborn.
This is Jess, and I'm bringing you the weekly update and some announcements from August 31st through September 6th of 2023. First Choice has provided 58 free pregnancy tests and 37 free ultrasounds to our patients. If you're tuning in for the first time, First Choice is a Christian, life-affirming nonprofit pregnancy center nestled in the center of Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, shining as a beacon of light from God who allows us to serve the women of this community in a crisis pregnancy. The clients we serve are mainly abortion-bound, but about 81% of our abortion-bound clients choose life after coming to First Choice. What sets us apart from others? Well, we are the only abortion reversal provider in Nevada, and because of our strategic location, we can intercept the women who are actively bound to abortion. It's vital to reach them with our free services and speak up for their defenseless child's life inside their womb. And it's even more critical that our listeners and supporters help join in the fight too. Without your support, the women searching for an abortion wouldn't have the many resources available to them at First Choice, like abortion reversals and the powerful tool found in ultrasounds. If you'd like to join the conversation today, call the radio station at 702-650-5588 and let them know that you want to sponsor us too. If you're joining us live on social media, you can interact with us. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at FCPS Friends or on Instagram and Twitter at FCPS_friends. Deb?
Well, we have David Garris back with us today. I think last time we were here, we were breaking him into this, and you guys should hear all that he's done since the last time he was here. So he's so used to media now, it's no sweat. We're going to run out of time again. So we have him back today. He was actually... He came to my house last week and met with Jess and I while we were sitting there trying to tackle a bunch of stuff away from First Choice, because it's really hard to get stuff done at First Choice. And Dave came over and was sharing with us a lot of the different things that he's been doing in the organization that he founded recently, and just talking about the different networking things that were available, and just said, man, he has so many resources.
Yeah.
And people have no idea how many resources are out there. But he's always a good person to bring into this conversation. So we were like, hey, let's circle back, bring him in, find out a little bit about some of the resources that he's found, what he's doing, because as he's pushing out his thing, he's also pushing out First Choice. So we want to let people know some of the awesome resources he's had. Maybe you could tell the story of our safety director actually called him a couple weeks ago. He had a young woman that was kicked out of her house by her parents, right, Dave? What was the story?
Actually,
okay.
It's okay.
I'll go ahead and I'll give you an idea. So, and I know Lewis did have the opportunity. Thank you. That worked. Now I can hear myself. So I hope I don't get too loud on you. I know you had the opportunity to have Lewis come in and talk, which is excellent. I mean, very, very nice man. I appreciate his time and efforts. I can tell you that I received a phone call. It was in the evening, latter part of the evening, and he and Lewis had informed me that his wife had been in communication with a young woman, 17 years of age. She only spoke Spanish, so she was able to translate, and they were able to at least relay the message of what was going on. The way it was explained to me was that the young woman had actually made her way across the border and was actually had coyotes bring her across. And once she got on the American side, she was transported over to Nevada by allegedly the coyote's brother. At some point in time, they engaged in a sexual relationship, and she ended up finding out she was pregnant. At that point in time, not saying, she's young, maybe naive, and certainly now in a new country, very scary, turns around and decides to kind of hold on to this gentleman. And at one point in time, he became physically abusive towards her, to the point where she had actually ran away. And then he had told me that she had made her way to a shelter, but the shelter was very uncomfortable for her. And again, teenagers, I have some, so I know they're not necessarily the smartest at that age. We're working on them, right? But she had ran away from the shelter and went back to him. At that point in time, he became more physically violent. Of course, that became even more concerning. And at this point in time, he dropped her off at a park, just left her. She reached out to Lewis's wife and was letting her know that she's extremely scared, not knowing what to do next. And that's where I became involved. So Lewis called me up.
And the front end to this story was that Lewis's wife, Lupa, had been in that day as her advocate. And the only reason she had connected with this girl the way she had was the girl was 3 days younger than her daughter.
Wow.
And so she had given her her phone number and connected with her that way. So then when this girl had this happen, she had that connection with Lupa. And then go ahead with your story.
Yeah. And that just shows you how God works. It's, it's the littlest times, the littlest moments when all of a sudden you get that little sparkle or the click. So ultimately he reached out and told me the scenario that they were in. And, unfortunately, our facility, the Community Impact Center, was closed at that time. So, of course, going into police mode, I thought, how do we get her safe right now? And the way to do that was to reach out to Safe Nest. And fortunately, their program was able to facilitate room for her. So she did make her way over there and then had the opportunity to talk to advocates and work towards a solution. Now, of course, that facility here in town is a women's only. So, there's not much follow-up on our side of it, and not being in law enforcement anymore. I don't have that opportunity.
And they, because of it being a domestic violence situation, Lewis and his wife picked her up and took her dinner, and then they drove her to a location where they had them drop her off, and then she had to walk several blocks to get to wherever the safe place was she was going.
Yeah, and that's by design, just so nobody thinks that he just dropped her. What they do is they actually try to do it as a safety factor. They have somebody, one of their advocates that's not law enforcement, not set up for any type of encounter or combat situation, and ultimately met her at a designated location that she was aware of to take her. So she was met shortly thereafter.
It's for their safety, yeah. He said, I watched her as far as I could watch her walk.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
very
amazing.
Scary. But thank God that came together the way it did.
But we have tons of other resources. Just tell us again, who's your organization and what is your purpose?
Absolutely. I won't get too detailed. I don't want to take up the whole time, but what I will tell you is as a police officer, I retired in 2020. Prior to that, in 2016, there was a collaboration between the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the Regional Justice Center here at our courts. And what happened was Judge Beatty Yeager at the time had learned about a program through the Obama administration that was called Alternatives to Incarceration. And so we applied for that. And when we actually did receive the grant, it was a 2-year grant, and it allowed for us to address the crimes of quality of lifestyle crimes, such as petty larceny, trespassing, crimes that would be based on, say, homelessness or people that are desolate at that moment. So instead of us just going out as police officers and writing violations and fining people that don't have anything, and it's better to sit back and take the time and figure out what those folks need. So what that grant allowed us to do was to actually have to establish the Community Impact Center. It's the Las Vegas Township Community Center. It's over off of Royal Crest. And so we purchased the building, and to give you an idea, we have on Thursdays a sitting judge, which you'll get to see today.
Wow.
Our sitting judge is Judge Della Garza. Wonderful, wonderful lady. She grew up here in the community. And what happens is when folks come in, they come in based on the violation. Once they come in, they have the opportunity to meet with our counselors, and they take the time to find out what is it that they need. Sometimes it's as simple as an identification. You know, we see folks sitting on the side of the highway soliciting money and stuff like that. And everybody's like, why don't you get a job or everything else? But when you sit back and you really have the time to talk to folks and find out what they need, that's usually what inhibits them from being able to do the things that everybody would expect them to do. So through that, fast forward, in retirement, I realized that the biggest challenge that we had between the courts and the police department was we couldn't go outside and solicit outside donations or funding or assistance in any manner. So I established the Hold Fast Foundation, Hold Fast Nevada Foundation, and that was for the purpose of being able to facilitate that. So now on this side, I'm able to not only go out and market and talk about what our resources are, because the biggest thing is getting these out to the people. It's not about who comes in on a violation. It's about everybody, anybody that needs these things.
Amen.
Thank you.
Which my ears perked up when we were having this conversation at Deb's house. I was like, oh, I know some people that need these things.
Yes, and I would highly encourage anybody that really wants to look into our program, either come down and see us. You can always call us at 702-671-3811, or you can even go to our website. But what I'd like to tell you that is not just about the marketing aspect. It's about also saying, how do we go out, and now we have the ability to go out and ask for the things that people need. For example, yesterday we had a major, and I know a lot of people throughout the valley have been affected by the flooding. I
just informed Dave that we're going to need his assistance.
Oh, man.
Go ahead, Dave.
We did get hit hard.
Yeah, of all times. The things that we don't want to spend the money on.
Tell us what you were just going to tell us.
Yeah, so with that, and then the last part is we develop resources. So not only are the resources, we know the resources are out there that when people want to help. The problem is we don't have that conversation. And bringing those people together creates that partners in the community. Just like as a policeman, it said on my car, partners with the community. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's what we make it mean. If we don't take the time to go out and meet people, find out how they can help, or if they need help, then we don't really know how to fix our community. So that's our goal, is to get the word out there about the resources that are there. You do not have to receive a citation to receive help. If you are in a situation where you need detox or you need mental health, focusing on PTSD or even just as simple as, medical assistance, or come down and talk to us. We have, like I said, a sitting judge. Our staff is all staffed from the Justice Center. So when you sit back and say, well, I have legal issues, I'm concerned about that. Well, you know how difficult it is to go to RJC. The building downtown is very difficult to park and everything else. Our facility's right there. You can walk right in and see us. I highly recommend that.
Man, you guys have no idea the amount of resources available too. Like when you sit there and you listen, like childcare, Dave was saying the other day, there's an organization if you have a single parent and you need some help with childcare. He was telling us about a place that helps with childcare.
Las Vegas Reach. And that's another one of our partners. And, they really did it during times when folks are, especially families, young families, or families going through hard times right now, they need that extra boost. So having, not just saying, okay, we have the Community Impact Center, which is a resource sharing facility, but we also have you folks, of course, out there helping the families and the ladies and making sure that they have what they need. And that's ultimately, I'd love to push it, really push that out and let everybody know. What we're working on now is developing a resource card, so that when the young ladies come in and find out, yes, they have the miracle of the blessing of a baby coming.
This is Dave's brainchild, just FYI.
Well, and by all means, I say it out loud because I'm not. It's not just me. It's about making sure that we get the resources necessary so that when the young ladies walk out of your facility excited, ready for that family growth, that they know, wow, you know what? Wait a minute, this is not gonna. It's not cheap. Nothing's cheap right now. We know that. It's very challenging. So how do we go about making sure that they have the access to the resources to keep the baby beyond, making sure that they're comfortable, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be about the new baby. Remember, there are other children, husbands, wife, all those things.
Which I have a story to tie into these resources now. I think last time we did the radio show, last week we did the rerun, and we had done the Florida and Arizona stories, right? So Saturday morning, I had a board meeting for First Choice, and I was just going to zoom in because I had the event with KKVV at 10 o'clock up at Floyd Lamb Park, and I was like, I don't know if I want to drive all the way down to the center. Well, one of our board members had asked me for a list, and so I had the paper printed in my bag, and I decided, well, I guess I'll go for an hour, and then I'll drive back up to Floyd Lamb. I walked in the door, and met by Jessica, and she's the only one working in the office that morning. No volunteers had arrived yet. And there is a patient in the lobby. And so I'm walking around looking for files to call a few volunteers and see if they can come in, just because we were unsure if some of the volunteers that were coming in were coming in. And while I'm doing this, I walk back into the office, and a young woman comes walking up to the window. Jessica opens the window, and she hands her a paper, and it has the name of the abortion clinic across the street on it. And she says, I have an 8:15 appointment. So Jessica hands me the paper, and I said, what? You want me to take this? And she says, yep.
You're on deck.
And I was like,
Tag, you're it.
Oh, wow. So when I tell you guys the counseling room is like a frying pan, it's no joke. Like, walking into the counseling rooms, you know the spiritual warfare that goes down in that building, and it's no joke when you walk into those counseling rooms.
I mean, if you think about it, it's incredibly intense. You're walking into these rooms, and you know you're in there to fight for the life of the baby that's inside that womb. And so it's literally a life and death matter.
Yes.
And it's all on your shoulders.
So she hands it off. So she hands it off to me. And so I go and I open the boardroom door and I peek in and I say to the board, well, I guess I won't be joining you guys right now. I'm going to go talk to this woman that has walked in for an abortion. I don't know how it will go. Be praying for me. So as I'm walking out, Chris is walking in. And she's our events manager. She speaks Portuguese. And I say, Chris, I'm going to go tell this lady that we're not the abortion clinic and see if she will stay. Do you want to join me? Yeah, I'll join you. I'd like to see how you guys do this.
This was a training experience too.
Yes. So we walk into the counseling room, and I informed the woman. I said, I was told that you think you have an abortion appointment here at 8:15. I want you to know that we are not the abortion clinic. We don't provide abortions, but these are the services that we do provide. And I told her that we would be willing to give her a free ultrasound at that moment to help her determine the viability of her pregnancy, if she even needed an abortion. I said, 1 in 4 pregnancies ends naturally. That might be something that you don't even need. You don't even know if you have a baby developed. You don't know how far along exactly you are. She thought maybe she knew, but wasn't sure. And so I asked her, would you be willing to stay for that? She had driven out of state from Utah. And so she ended up breaking down. She told us the story of what had happened, which was heartbreaking. Telling us how she was really struggling as a single mom. She has a young child that's 6 years old, and she had been raped by that child's father, who had just come back into his life to get to know him. And so she was like, I just can't. He was hoping that she would end up pregnant so that it would tie her to him and she'd have to take him back to help her. And she had gone and taken the morning after pill when it had happened, hoping that would prevent anything from taking place. And she was just really distraught over the whole situation, told us about some of her childhood and how difficult it was and how different she was trying to be for her child now. And so I sat there and I talked to her a little bit about my background and upbringing and the struggles that our family had when I was younger, and that we were homeless for a little while. And I said, but the one thing that we had from our parents, we had love. I said, my parents never took any of the lives of their children because they couldn't afford us. And so then Chris relayed to her part of her story, how she could relate to her in being violated. And it was so powerful to have different people with different stories relating to her where she was at. So we went back to ultrasound, turned on the Doppler. There was a 6-week, 3-day, I think, baby, so there was a good heartbeat. We allowed her friend to come back, who, when she came back into the room, was like, what do you mean you're not getting an abortion? We're in the wrong place. Why are we here? I just need to make a phone call. And then we were like, oh, no, we got to get this woman out of here. Yeah. Bad business.
Well, in the meantime, they had the family that was knocking on the window wanting to go get her.
Yeah, I couldn't see any of that because I was in back. So I walk out of the room, and Dr. Hamza happens to be in reading charts. And so I go in, and I'm talking to Dr. Hamza about the story, and Michelle, our sonographer, comes out and says, yeah, I told her that we do abortion pill reversals, so if she still goes forward with an abortion and that's the avenue she goes, that Dr. Hamza can reverse it. And she asked, how long? And so I think maybe she's still thinking about it. So I said to Dr. Hamza, hey, would you come in here and talk to this patient? She says, yeah. And you know Dr. Hamza, how charismatic she is. She's such a loving, warm, wonderful woman. She walks in and she just wraps her arms around this girl and just gives her a hug. That was her initial greeting to her. And the girl starts telling her how she's struggling. She has a small 2-bedroom apartment and she just can't imagine adding more to this little place. And Dr. Hamza says, you know, my mom was a single mother and I have 4 younger siblings. And it wasn't till I was 15 years old that I ever knew what it was like to sleep in a bed. She said, we all grew up in one room on the floor with a blanket and pillow till I was 15. And somehow my mom managed to put us all through school. And I mean, look at her here in a white coat as a doctor. And this girl's just sitting there listening to her. And so she told us what her child's name was. And Dr. Hamza converted it into a female name and just said, hey, take his stuff and let her have his uniforms. When he has leftover food, let her eat the leftovers. And so I had told her, I said, you know what faith is? Because she said, I go to church every Sunday. I've been doing everything right. I just don't understand. And I just told her, I said, faith is trusting what you can't see. I said, when you make honoring choices, God will honor those choices. So by the end of the visit, she had picked out baby booties and baby hats that our volunteers make. And she'd walked out, stopped by Jess on the way out the door, went out to the car. We were all watching the monitor for 5 minutes. And they ended up leaving First Choice, and they went out to Sahara, did not go to the abortion clinic. Praise God. Amen. So I followed up with her last week, and I said, hey, I just want to call and see how you're doing and what happened. And she said, thank you so much. I went and I told my parents, because that was the majority of what she was scared about. And I told my mom what I was going to do, and my mom said, you are not a bad person. You are not a murderer. You do not do that. We will help you. And so the response of her parents was so much different than what she was fearful of. And she said, I told her there's pregnancy centers up there. And so she went to a pregnancy center up there where she lives in Utah, and they connected her with a whole bunch of resources that she didn't know existed. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm getting ready to get WIC. Her life in 1 week's period was completely different than last week. Yeah. And it was just, she's like, I'm looking for your doctor's cell phone number because I know she gave it to me, but I lost it. Can I get it from her? So Dr. Hamza had reached out to a doctor she knew up in Utah that they were going to tag team. She told her, I'm getting ready to have a grandbaby. It's time for me to visit Utah. Nice. So it was amazing to see how God brought everybody to First Choice that morning who wasn't supposed to be there for that one person. And then how there was so many resources available to her that made a huge difference in her circumstances to be able to make choosing life for her child something that was a little bit easier for her to do. So.
And it's amazing how even in that story we can see how God used Dr. Hamza's past and your past and Chris's past to connect with this young woman and to pour that love and truth into her and make what seemed like ashes at a period of time for you guys into something beautiful now. And so that brings us right into
banquet. Perfect, Jess. Our banquet. Our banquet is October the 6th at the Westgate. Sean's coming. Dave's coming.
I'll be there.
We hope
Mom's
to see.
Coming.
Yes, my mom is sitting here on set quietly because she doesn't want to be on camera. Mm-hmm. But she's flying back in for that event with some of my family. So we're excited for this event, and we're prayerful that God is going to continue to send people our way to help us carry this ministry forward. It's so important, and it's only by the grace of God that First Choice continues to stand, and God uses people to make that happen. So we need everybody to be involved in this ministry and helping us push forward with this event. FCPSfriends.org has all the banquet info.
It'll be a black and white gala, so make sure that whenever you come, it doesn't have to be a tuxedo, but make sure you wear something that's black and white. We have something special planned with that. So, again, you can get your tickets at fcpsfriends.org. If you have a silent auction item that you would like to donate, now is the time to get that to us as well. We hope you all have a blessed week. Thank you so much for joining us and for supporting the Unborn Lives.
Thanks, Dave, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining your ambassadors for the unborn on the Fight for Life radio, today and every Thursday on KKVV 1060 AM, the best news radio, the gospel airship.
If you'd like to support the cause of saving unborn babies, or if you have a question you'd like us to answer on the air, go to fcpsfriends.org or call us at 702-294-CARE. Again, that number is 702-294-2273.
On behalf of his little ones, thank you and God bless.
From the Salvation Army,